the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
Oklahoma was in the Big 12 championship every single year.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Final grouping here, Matt Green.
Final grouping. So I basically, Ohio State's sitting on 10 years, which is a giant drought for them. But they got in, and they're just a national championship or bust kind of program every single year. But they're still finishing top 5. You know, they would have been in every single 12-team playoff. They're going to be Ohio State, but I'm sure they're getting a little antsy up there because it has been a while since they won a championship. But they did win a college football playoff. I started this next drought of anyone who didn't win a college football playoff. So now we're over 10 years. Florida State being the first at 11 years, Auburn at 14. Florida at 16 years, and Texas at 19. And this list feels like okay, it hasn't been a while. You as a fan, as a 30-year-old guy, know that like, oh, it was recently that my team won a national championship. I saw it with my own eyes, you know. So like you have a certain cachet as a fan, like you've seen your team at the mountaintop. But if you don't act fast, you could end up in that 1980 group, just like Georgia was. I say 1980 because it just became such a rallying cry, and way to troll Georgia fans on Twitter. But like Auburn, you know, they're sitting at 14 years. Like that's not a long drought, but we all have to remember, you know, that 2013 team obviously didn't win. That was a more magical season with how it happened. They didn't win it all. But that, I guess it was more magical, but is anything more magical than just stumbling upon like the greatest player in college football history for a year with Cam Newton? Like, who knows if that's ever going to happen again? So for what it took for Auburn to win that first national championship, and oh shoot, what was their drought before then? I mean, I don't know if they won one back in the 80s. They may have been sitting on like a 40-something year drought at that point.
Do we give them credit for the year with Campbell and company where they got left out and they should have been in? Were they the best team in college football that year?
No, we definitely don't give them credit for it. Obviously, it was an undefeated season.
Yeah.
But you got to go back to 1957. That was their previous championship before 2010. So Auburn, you know, if you don't act fast, you could be that drought could get a little big.
It's funny. Like, I'm curious on the Auburn thing with you, Matt Green. If I had to say, like, if you had to guess who's more likely to end the drought sooner, Auburn or Florida, what's your gut there?
That's a good question. I think in my book, and that's definitely what I'm talking about from a mental, like, fan base, just a mentality. Like, if you're a 30-year-old Florida fan, you've seen 3 national championships.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen your team be like the best program in college football multiple times, you know, or at least arguably the best program in college football multiple times. So Florida feels like Auburn just popped up and was great a couple times. It feels like what Auburn has done. It doesn't feel like, and you know, with Tommy Tuberville, like they had, you know, they were a consistent program. Don't get me wrong. They were consistent top 20 program.
Too.
What's that?
Bowden was too.
Yeah, for sure. They were a consistent top 20 program, but they're not necessarily consistent. Like I think Florida finished top 5, top 10, like 10 years in a row or something under Spurrier. Yeah. Like it was definitely another level of elite and consistent. And then Urban Meyer had like a solid, 3 or 4 years in a row of being elite. So it's been a while and things have changed a lot. Like you went from Georgia being this consistently good program that just had some sort of mental block about playing you to now Georgia owns that rivalry against you. And Georgia's like the best program in college football now. So the dynamics have changed a lot for Florida. Obviously, Florida State and Miami, that's always going to be a challenge for them to have an elite program with those other 2 teams also trying to build elite programs. Part of me would say Auburn because if it's going to happen in the next 5 years, like there's no chance. I feel like Florida wins a national championship in the next.
No
5
chance
years.
at Florida. They're walking
Zero chance.
They're walking into 5-star to top 5 classes in down years. Like if they make the right head coaching change, they could go immediately to a deep CFP run. Immediately.
You're talking about like you're currently going to fire your current head coach.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, would it really surprise you if they fire?
Years.
Okay, so if they fire Billy Napier, right? This offseason,
we have to hope they get the next hire right. Like they've gotten like 4 wrong in a row.
I'm not disagreeing.
I guess Mullen was good.
Mullen was not
good
wrong.
For
yeah, I would say Mullen was not wrong,
and then fell off a cliff.
But I would say like they're still just a head coach away from being a national title. Like they really are
away.
Yes.
Just the head coach, just the guy that runs the entire
hire, like if they just could hire like Mike Elko, like just hire somebody like that, just hire someone solid who can like manage this. Like I don't know, I just think Florida, it's one of the more perplexing things in college football history is that Florida, outside of Urban and Spurrier, just cannot figure out what should be so easy with the talent in the state, their name recognition, the brand, the SEC conference behind. Like there is like they're still like, it's crazy that they're gonna have a top 10 roster in the sport this year and they're gonna look to go like 3-9. Like it's
that's
crazy.
One of the reasons I question those metrics is because Florida does not have a top 10 roster in college football. Like I don't care what they're recruiting.
They have a top 10 talent roster.
Yeah, I don't care what those recruiting numbers say. Like this Florida team does not have like I don't know. They're not built for any sort of success. They're also not one of the teams we mentioned where we're talking about like the top 8 or 9 teams in the conference next year. We didn't even give Texas A&M the time of day, who's actually been like recruiting at an elite level in recent years. And we all know about the money and everything and the resources A&M have. Like, I don't see Florida in the next 5 years. There's like zero chance, but Auburn.
No, you can't do that. I'm not letting you do that. You've said this twice. No,
if you talk about this Auburn and Florida, like the next to end their respective droughts, there's a chance Florida does it before Auburn, but there's no chance it's in the next 5 years. Maybe they win a championship in 2032 or something.
Matt,
I don't know.
No. If they like hired, I mean, I'm trying to think who. If like Ryan Day got tired of dealing with Ohio State, or they fired him because he lost to Michigan again this year, like he loses to Michigan, and they are just like, look, you just can't lose to Michigan this many times in a row. You got to go. You hire Ryan Day at Florida, like they're an immediate like I'm penciling them as a CFP team the next year, immediately.
Yeah, I don't know about. I mean. It's a crazy premise to go on. Yeah, if they have Ryan Day, like maybe if they have a good, but it's gonna take a while for them for a big time head coach.
Steve Belichick walks in after a great DC year in Washington.
I mean, think about it. Like the last SEC championship was 2008.
Yeah,
like I mean,
I'm not disagreeing. The drought's crazy, but I'm just saying Florida. It's so easy to fix Florida with the right coach. Like the right coach wins big at Florida. Like it's just. I don't know. I just could see it flip. I think Auburn's harder to win, significantly harder. And that's also...
I know Scott Frost turned it down, but, there's the alma mater thing. I can't remember exactly. Do you remember any names that turned it down when Napier got the job? I know like Brian Kelly was like the same year, but
Brian Kelly Lane Kiffin, maybe?
He wasn't really on the market. Was Lane Kiffin? Yeah, I don't know. It just...
But I mean, let's throw that out there. If Lane Kiffin took that job next year, would that really shock you if Lane Kiffin won a title at Florida in 3 years?
Lane Kiffin would fit the Spurrier, Urban Meyer vibe. That's exactly what would fit Florida. But I don't know. I mean,
Kyle Whittingham follows the Urban Meyer trail there. He goes from Utah to Florida. Like, I don't know. I could see it.
That would feel like a Brian Kelly to LSU type of move.
Brian Kelly might win a title at LSU in the next 2 years.
No, I'm saying I think that's a good. I think that's a good hire. But another thing I just don't see happening. But I don't know. It's hard to be optimistic about your prospects right now when you're Florida because, like I said, with Georgia being as good as they are right now, like that's a huge albatross hanging over them. And Florida State, isn't exactly a cellar dweller. Like this team was, arguably should have been in the college football playoff a year ago. So those two teams are not going away. And this ridiculous 2024 schedule that they have, like the SEC's already said, yeah, we're just gonna swap that and run it back in 2025. So they're gonna have that same schedule just about in 2025. So maybe the non-conference is a little different, but yeah, it's I don't know. Florida, it's not going to be easy. Like Auburn is obviously sitting there with like Georgia and Alabama, like just kind of hanging over them. But I don't know, with Hugh Freeze, they feel like Auburn just feels like the high risk, high reward kind of Hugh Freeze. I just wouldn't be surprised if Hugh Freeze it wins something at Auburn, because we've seen him have success at Ole Miss, and I don't know. I can't, because of the current trajectory, I can't say Florida's going to bust this drought anytime soon.
I think Florida busts the drought, and then they're right back to where just walking through the valley, just confused and underachieving, and still with the super talented rosters. I just think they're going to be a blip team. They're going to come out of nowhere again and have the talent.
That feels like Auburn. Auburn feels like the ultimate blip team. They can just pop up and get hot one year, beat Georgia and Alabama at home. But so those are obviously the two that are more of the long shots, I think, in this middle group, because Florida State and Texas, those are the two teams I think the conversation is really about. Florida State's at 11 years since their last championship. Texas sitting on 19 years since their last national championship.
Yeah.
Barely in under that 20-year mark. Who do
Texas
you think
is going to break that sooner?
You think Texas before Florida State?
Oh, without question, yeah. No hesitation. I think Texas wins one in the next three.
I mean, I think going through the SEC is still a hurdle, though. Obviously, you don't have to win the conference.
No.
But that's still...
I mean, they're going to have top 3 most talented roster year in, year out going forward. Like, they're going to... I mean,
you saw them with top 5 roster, like the best roster.
They were just in the Final Four, Matt Green. They just were in the Final Four. Michigan was in it. Michigan was in it 2 years ago in the Final Four.
So why is Washington a blip, but Texas is...
Oh, I'm sorry. Have you seen the high school talent in the state of Texas and the NIL budget of the state of the University of Texas?
I just want you to explain. Well, why is TCU? Why are they a blip? But Texas, they don't
have the resources or the brand or the conference and all kinds. There's so many reasons as to why. Like Texas is not the same as all of those schools. Texas is right there with Georgia. It's Texas and Georgia. Like I think that's who runs the sport for the next few years. I just think they're going to be the hardest to beat year in, year out with what they're bringing together. I mean, Texas obviously beat Alabama last year. They make the Final Four. They play Washington really close to the end. Like they bring in Quinn Ewers. He's back. Arch Manning sitting behind him. Like I don't know. Sark doesn't seem like he's going anywhere. I think Florida State, I need to see what conference they wind up in. I need to see how much the financial disparity between the SEC and Big Ten start to weigh on the non-Power 2 schools. I'm curious what that means for NIL, for other things. I don't know. I don't know. We're entering a new phase here with the Power 2 and the TV deal. So we're going to see if that changes things in the power dynamics furthermore. So I don't know. I would definitely err on the side of Texas. We've talked about Florida State, I think, takes a step back this year. And I don't know. They don't have the top roster. The resources at this point, no, I'm still going Texas, no question.
See, I think Florida State's positioning them like Oklahoma and Texas kind of used to be. That like, the ACC is not just these programs aren't just going to fall off a cliff. Like obviously the SEC and Big Ten are getting more money and all that, but like these Clemson, Florida State, like Miami, like these programs are like still. I'm not going to throw Miami. Forget throwing Miami in there. Florida State and Clemson, like they're still powerhouse programs and capable of winning a national championship. So I wouldn't just write off Florida State just because of like resources and stuff like that. And obviously we don't even know how much longer this is going to last. Like I don't think either of those programs are going to get left out in the cold. Like,
but we don't know how long they'll be out.
Say that again.
But we don't know how long. Like we don't know how long this will take.
No, that's true. But I don't know. I have a hard time seeing what Mike Norvell's done with Florida State, just seeing them just start to go downhill. Like, maybe with the way they with the way they used the portal this last year, maybe that leads to a bit of a drop off because they don't have a roster built as solid on a solid foundation. That could be the case, but I look at like it's just crazy if you told me this like 5 years ago. Like I don't know how long ago do we announce this Oklahoma, Texas eventually going to the Big 12? It feels like 5 years ago, but
was it 5?
But it's just crazy to me that we're talking about Texas as being a juggernaut in the SEC like from day one, and talking about Oklahoma like a middle of the pack SEC program when they were the one that was dominating that conference for so many years. And Texas was not doing well in the Big 12, but you got 1 year of them making the college football playoff, and now we're like, oh, this is a juggernaut year in, year out. And I feel like we're kind of minimizing like how much more difficult the competition is really going to be week in, week out for Texas going into the SEC.
That's fair. All right, sir. Well, that was a fun exercise.
Yeah, and I don't even think we gave Miami.
I talked about them a lot.
23 years.
I gave them a lot of
for
flowers
them.
last time.
It's we'll see. Cristobal's got you were big on Miami in 2024, right? So
I'm big on
who knows? This
too.
could be the year Miami busts the drought.
It's possible.
But yeah, next week we'll have to do.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.